Welcome. Not many sessions now before the program point that says pre-dinner drinks. Please bring all your energy. Feel free to ask questions when we make it to questions. We're more than happy to take any questions from the room. Brief introductions. I'm Brian Lingard. I head up our Irish business. We have the pleasure of protecting some of Ireland's biggest food manufacturers and indeed food retailers. To my right, your left, Dr. Colm Moore. Colm is head of technical across a big chunk of the Rentokil Initial world, has just shy of 20 years experience and is truly getting the hang of it. To my left, your right, Paul Donegan, head of digital innovation. For those of you that are familiar with Rentokil, you will know our Pest Connect, which is one of the things on Paul's rep sheet over the years. What Paul's going to take you through today, starting off, is forensic pest control.
Thank you, Brian. Well, good afternoon. It's great to see you all. Today we're going to put a new lens on integrated pest management. And the lens reference is really important because we're bringing cameras and AI to pest control. And we're going to take a look at how we're bringing this new technology to solve the mystery of the unseen threats that could exist at any of your sites. As this synergies with criminal investigation, I'm going to play a bit of a role as a crime scene investigator for some parts of this presentation. So, in order to protect the victims of this case, we will not share any identifiable information, but they are a real and valued customer of ours in the food sector, and this case is based on true events. So how does this story start? Well, there was no traditional evidence suggesting rodent activity noticed by the customer or by our technicians during their normal routine visits. But unfortunately, all was not as it seemed. So in spaces not easily visible to humans, rodents have gained access to the building, and they're using wall cavities and disused drains, and they could have remained undetected until a customer sighting or traditional signs of pest activity were found by our experts. And in the meantime, their numbers would have grown significantly, putting food safety at risk. And this is a scenario that could exist anywhere in the industry. And for the first time, we've put eyes in places we hadn't before. In effect, a covert surveillance team in the guise of a series of pest-detecting cameras. And that's just the first part of our forensic toolkit. So this is where the case gets really interesting, and when the investigation begins in earnest. And clearly the cameras show what happened, and the date and the time and the event, in much like a crime scene investigation. You can start to piece the elements of the activity together. As well as the photo, we now have the location made visible, and this brings three core elements together. What happened, where did it happen, and when did it happen? And remember that this is a site with no obvious signs of pests being present. So what happened? So knowing that there was rodent activity, we visited the site, and our experts started to look a lot more closely at the root cause analysis. We quickly found recycling and rubbish areas which were why the rodents were in this location in the first place. There was good food source, explaining why no bait was taken and where no traps had been activated. So we worked with a customer on housekeeping, recommendations, and started a pest intervention program significantly earlier than traditional meals. So this put an end to the mystery. But what's in a forensic toolkit? So I want to take you deeper into the world of forensic pest control. And this dramatic change is being fueled by the evolution of technology and data and providing visibility that until now was simply not possible. And this year is celebrating 100 years of pest control. And back then, services were delivered using a significantly simpler toolkit. 100 years on, and it's a whole different world. Technology has changed a lot, but our expertise haven't. And I think this is the key, because our people are the core constant, and they're the key to our success. Their knowledge about pests and the industry, and their expertise over time has given us significantly more knowledge in pest behavior that we've ever had. But it's our people that are making this happen, and the technology is simply enabling them. We're combining digital technology with our trusted expertise to give our customers a complete peace of mind. So there's 4 parts to our toolkit. The camera itself, the AI and the machine learning that sits behind it, all the extra evidence that we collect at a customer site, that our technicians collect, and our non-camera related equipment collects. And we bring all of this together in our data and analytics lab. So the first part of the toolkit is the camera itself. And Pest Connect Optics allows us to see that previously unseen. It's providing visibility of pests and their behaviors where human eyes can't easily go. Our trap-based connected solutions can only inform us when they're triggered. Cameras give us this view of the broader environment we're trying to protect, so we can venture outside of the traps and the base stations and start to piece together a lot more of the picture. It's a small and compact battery-powered camera designed and developed specifically for environmental monitoring in pest control. It's really simple to install, and it's fully integrated with our wider digital ecosystem. We've been innovating in this space for over 3 years now, and have overcome many of the challenges that exist with camera technology. Firstly, the battery life. Many of the solutions on the market, these batteries only last 30 days before they run out of battery and need a visit to be recharged. We have a solution that can take up to 15,000 images that can last several years in the field. Secondly, and I think this is something that is a lot harder than it sounds, how do you take a picture of a rodent in a dark space? Remember, rodents can run up to 30 miles an hour. So we have to wake up a camera, light a dark space, take a picture, all within the sight of the camera before all you're doing is taking a picture of an empty space. And that's quite tricky. They can be installed in really hard to reach areas such as roof voids, subfloors, or areas of core infrastructure such as server rooms where gaining access is complex. Optics offers more protection and less disruption and 100% more visibility. And this means we're always on watch for pest activity in real time, providing evidence of pest activity even when there's no obvious evidence. So let's move on to the second part of the toolkit. And this is around the AI and the cloud technology. And we've been training our AI and machine learning models for over 3 years now and have collected tens of millions of pictures from out in real-world scenarios. This is unique, and it's always learning, and it's getting smarter with every picture that we take. And this technology is at the heart of optics. It can automatically detect, identify, and alert us of pest activity whilst intelligently removing false positives. We mustn't forget that behind all of the AI, there's humans, and the humans are training the model. And we call this the human in the loop, and we mustn't forget that. This means that we've invested a lot of time perfecting these models and developing their accuracy and anomaly detection, because the last thing we want to be doing is creating call-outs on pictures of things that look like pests. Linked to that, we put a lot of emphasis on data security and privacy, and our platform is ISO 27001 certified from a data security and privacy perspective. We're able to identify humans and faces and blur them out before they're taken and processed. And the same with logos and things that you don't want out in the social space. So early detection and intervention leads to a lot less disruption for you, and at the same time is better for our planet as food supply chains with a reduced resilience on chemical control methods. So Pest Connect Optics is the latest addition to a whole range of connected solutions that we have. We have over 500,000 connected devices which are linked to billions of data points that we can give to our colleagues, the whole and most complete picture that we've ever been able to do. And so when we get to your site, the time we're there, we can spend a lot more time focused and targeted on where the issues are. So the additional time we save, we can be used to gain better understanding of your environment and how to improve that partnership at a really local level, which we all recognize as a really key part of integrated pest management. So the final element of this forensic toolkit is the command center. And this is our internal analytics platform, and it's the engine that powers MyRentokil, the portal that you can all log into. This is where we surface the data, the photographs, ready for further investigation. The command center and the forensic data investigation that takes place there brings a whole new dimension to pest management. In effect, we've created a digital twin of every device at every customer site, and it's accessible to our frontline teams, allowing them to start that investigation before they even arrive at your site. We can drill down to a single device and start to see the photos and the trigger data, allowing our experts to put together a whole new set of insights that were previously unseen. It allows us to analyze this activity for hotspots and track pest activity at a location over time. So by seeing these trends, we can have a much more data-driven and proactive discussion with you, which helps us put a lot longer-lasting solution in place. If I share another example of how this all comes together, this is an example of one of our radar units at one particular customer site. And without being able to analyze this using the what and the where and the when principles, we just simply see a device that was triggered. But all of a sudden, we can start to spot some really significant trends that are data-driven. We can see what time of day, what day of the week, and we can have that data-driven discussion with you to see what's going on at 3 or 4 p.m. in the afternoon on a Thursday and Friday at that location to cause activity to be significantly higher than in the past. So we've been focusing on a single device at a single customer location, and that will always be, ultimately, that's where the pest problem is and where the intervention is required. But that's just the start. So by aggregating all of these individual data points up, we can have a macro view of your entire estate, and we can work together on your global pest challenges. So for example, we can create a simple league table of all of your sites for a common area such as a loading bay or a food storage warehouse, and we can quickly see outliers and focus in on sites where there could be wider underlying issues. So as you introduce standard naming conventions across your estate, we can quickly build and visualize where these common risks are, which is leading to that stronger partnership at protecting your sites. And that's where we can start to talk about the power of big data. Our teams around the world have access to the same technology, and you have access to the same customer portal in MyRentokil. And this gives us that ability to amplify these trends in a way few others can in the industry. So what's the verdict of the unseen. So the verdict is really clear, and the results speak for themselves. The forensic approach to pest control gives you a significant advantage over traditional means. If we visit your site 52 times a year, so once a week, if we go there every week for 1 hour, that still only leaves us there 52 hours in a whole year. So there's 8,700 hours we're not at your building. And with our machines and with our cameras, we're there 100% of the time. This leads us to a quicker, more proactive intervention and resolution. We've got data-backed evidence that suggests that this approach reduces the length of infestation by up to 50%. At the same time goes, this approach leads to a significant reduction and reliance on chemical treatments. Because we can get there sooner, we can solve the problem quicker, and the length of activity shorter, and we've got data-backed evidence to suggest that we can reduce rodenticide usage by up to 60%. So to conclude, our experts, empowered with AI and camera technology, delivers measurable results and ensures a safer, more efficient and sustainable food safety program. So I'm going to hand back to Brian, who's going to host us for some Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Fascinating. I've seen this presentation 16 times. I'm still sort of slightly fascinated. I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions from the room before we continue? There's a couple of roaming microphones. I'll ask one then. Colm.
Brian.
I heard sort of a buzzword halfway through. This is more sustainable. How do cameras and technology make pest control more sustainable?
Cameras, and I'm glad you said, and other things. So it's IoT. I think the current climate that we're in, from a pest control perspective, from a PCO operator, the tools, let's say the traditional tools that we would have had in the past are getting fewer and fewer. There's more restrictions with the biocidal products regulations driven through the EU, and we have the GB, BPR as well. And in other countries as well, like South Africa, will weigh in time. So I think with that BPR, you know, there's two things really happening. One is the products are going to be risk assessed or continue to be risk assessed, so we'll get fewer. Some will fall off naturally because they're very hazardous. And then others will fall off because manufacturers will say, well, I'm not going to spend $250,000. What's my return on investment? You know, I can only sell it into certain countries. So we're going to get fewer products to do the traditional, let's say, knockdown or the riddance programs. The labels themselves will be greatly restricted because the testing that you have to do, if you want to put a pest on a label, you got to test it against that pest. And if it's not on the label, you can't do it. So fewer pests, fewer products. I think that's the trajectory. That's where we're going. So AI and cameras will help us more quickly. I think you said it yourself, Paul, in it. It's a quicker identification. It's early, so we're getting into risk mitigation. We're also getting into root cause analysis. Where are they coming from? So what am I dealing with, and where is it? And so if I know those two and when, and I have a trend, I'll be able to get to the root cause. So my time is better spent on that site protecting the customer rather than running around checking boxes. So I think from a chemical perspective, I won't use as much chemical because I'll be zeroing and targeting where the problem is and not just scatterbombing the place with pesticide.
And presumably, earlier detection, fewer overall visits, less driving vans around,
less CO2. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all of that.
Less rodenticides, though. Does that mean, because we see that in the news all the time, more rats, more mice? Anybody that read British media would have seen that there's a rat plague in Birmingham at the moment. Is all of that connected? Are there more rodents these days?
I don't think so. Theoretically, and we don't have anecdotal data. I mean, we do have a lot of data. My brother, who is a global change biologist, is very jealous of the data that we have in terms of making predictions. But I think it still is only anecdotal because it's call-outs. It will be localized. It depends. I mean, an animal, what does an animal need? It needs food, it needs water, it needs harborage. All it wants to do is make babies. So if you can control those conditions, you'll get on top of the problem. With global warming, though, you will have a higher survival rate in the wild. So theoretically, yes, if we continue on this trajectory, we will have more and more rodents surviving. They have a natural mortality of about 90% in the field, but that's going to be sustained. And then, of course, we have urbanization, where we've got more and more people. These are commensal rodents. They live with us and adjacent to us. We create the conditions that they thrive in. It's our waste, it's our buildings, it's our structures that give them these conditions that they survive in. So I think anecdotally, yes, but I wouldn't be, sounding any alarm bells yet.
Plenty of reasons to read the news, but no alarms.
Yeah.
This is all far too cooperative. We've seen cameras, and I'm sure everybody in the room has seen a load of cameras over the last few years. I've been on Amazon. I can get a really good camera for 50 quid or 50 euros. What's different?
Yeah, I mentioned it a few times. There's a number of components to this. A lot of those cameras require you to take an SD card out and put it in a laptop to get the results. So the use of the camera is the start, right? The picture is powerful. The awareness earlier is good. So without it being fully integrated, it's still got some value. But as you bring it into, well, what else can it do? Well, I talked about the speed of rodents and moving around. You get a lot of empty pictures, and you get a lot of need for humans to look at a lot of empty pictures to find the one with the rodent in. And I think that overcoming that problem is quite important, and that's where you need the AI to sift through hundreds of pictures and go, that's the one, and then apply confidence rating and likelihood that this contains a picture of a pest. And that's where the training comes in, because if it looks a shoe or a reflection or something looks like a pest, you then need the millions of pictures to really tune in to avoid that wasted visit, that wasted call out. So I've talked about batteries, I've talked about waking it up and taking the picture, making it last a long time. It's quite difficult to access locations we want to look at. The runs are not going to run across the stage, very unlikely. They're going to be in places where humans can't easily go, in the quiet spaces, in dark spaces, in channels that run a long way. So getting a camera to work in those environments with the lighting and the accuracy you need to bring it to life and get that message out isn't one you can buy for £50 on Amazon at all. But the concept's there, and I think in the industry, if you speak to a lot of people in the industry, technicians at the front line have been using cameras, the wildlife camera that you see on the TV strapped to a tree looking into you can get those and they can work, but it's a lot more complex than that to do it at scale that we're trying to bring to life here.
If I can add to that, actually, the future is passive detection. So if we're living in a world where, rodent eating from bait box equals activity, but if we're relying on an animal to do something, follow a behavior, we could be barking up the wrong tree. We could be underestimating things. Whereas when you've got passive detection, such as camera, where the animal doesn't have to do anything, it just does its normal behavior, and you capture that activity, but you identify it, you know where it is, you have it time-stamped. That's very much the future.
And the connection of the camera to the command center is what moves it from Yeah, we could stick cameras in if we know there's something wrong to the passive detection.
This is that integrated solution from an audit perspective. So it's linked in and coupled with all the other human-related data. I talk usually about two channels. There's the human channel that we've been collecting data, recording data in our logbooks, in your logbooks, digitally through smartphones for years. But if you put the machine data alongside of that, we then get this richness of trend analysis down to the microsecond. We know that it occurred then because there's a photograph, and I think that integration is a key part to seeing that bigger picture. Because when you look at a site through the lens of just the data, those trends are there. The part of the building, the time of day, and what's the root cause based on that information is in the data. The data stories are there that you can follow through, and that's about training the workforce as well to look at those trends, to look at that analysis and bring that to life as we deliver the next generation of pest management.
No, it's very much data-driven, and I think looking at the stands downstairs, and it's heavily audited, and this is very transparent. It captures, it records, it stays, and it's not on a paper system. So you've got that documentation and that audit trail, and then you've got action off the back of it, which gives you your due diligence.
And surely then that must mean you roll with AI across the globe, and there'll be fewer people.
I think it's this combination we talk about. So early identification is the start. The solving the pest problem is the second bit. And I think that's the bit where it's this partnership with technology, partnership with our people and your people that ultimately solves the root cause. And it's just the technology is another trick in the toolbox, right? It's not just going to solve everything overnight. And clearly, if we can spot things, we can give trends, we can help people when we're turning up on site. And I think that is a key part. When our people's at your building looking around, they can spend significantly more time looking at some of those root cause challenges, solve the wider environmental problems, which should lead to more pest-free environments than they are before, because we're spending a lot less time looking for areas where there isn't a problem because we've put technology down to help us. So it's a partnership. And of course, over time, I think it's that transition of what people do from what they used to do to what they can do in the future. It will be different. Whether you need less people, I think that's a whole...
I don't think we need less. I think it's like, how I sum that up is, it's like, knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Okay, that's knowledge. But actually, experience would say, you don't put it in a fruit salad. And that's, AI has got that knowledge bit, but it doesn't have the understanding, and it doesn't have the, well, how do I solve this? Unless, maybe in time, but certainly not now. I don't think it's there yet.
And that has implications for how pest controllers are trained and selected and...
Oh, yeah. The focus will be on, as we integrated pest management, as we call it, ERDM. So identifying where they're coming in, keeping them down, making sure that we're not, the site isn't giving them harborage and food. We can then effectively kill them, but then we've got to keep that monitoring ongoing. That cycle, that focus will be more and more to the fore. It always was there, but I think it's rapidly, with the current climate, it's rapidly moving towards that.
And is this expensive? Would it cost us more to protect our customers?
Would it cost us more? So the cameras are new, and you've got to put a physical connection that's sending an image up to the internet for processing. So the technology costs are more than we had before. But I think what we're talking about is that earlier intervention. And when you look at the reduction in an infestation period, if you can half that, if it used to take 30 days and now it's 15, that 15 days where you might have lost more goods, you might have had production areas stopped. This is back to define the cost, and you start getting into what are we here to do. And I think it's that to try and keep your environment as pest-free as we can together. I think this is just an extra layer of protection that gives us this even earlier warning system. And I'm sure Colin will explain further, but the neophobia of rodents and getting a rodent into a physical trap takes time, whereas the camera is that passive word that you used. That gives you that awareness sometimes 2 or 3 weeks before something's actually happened, and that is a big length of time in the lifespan of a rodent that you've got early adoption. So I think the technology is clearly not free. You have to pay for the technology. The overall solution in place, I think, will end up with less disruption, less challenges, because we've had that earlier intervention.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Thank you. You showed us a slide with data on the command center. That's what Rentokil sees. What is in it for a customer? What can the customer see of the clever data and the pictures and everything that is behind the scene? Is it behind the scene, or is it as part of integrated pest management? What's available?
Yeah, I think I've got a picture to share with that. The transparency is critical. So if you're already a MyRentokil customer, there's floor plans. You see your entire site, your entire estate, and you can see where these devices or cameras or traps are located. And when you zoom into one particular camera, you can then start to get the calendar of what it can see. So that transparency is 100% right through to you guys. We can see what and where. And the key bit there is then, and the so what. And that's the recommendations and the partnership we put in place to then take the evidence and then move it forward to what intervention was made. So that all links together in transparency through MyRentokil. So you can see all of this as you would any other data. But I think the richness of bringing the pictures and the cameras together adds that extra piece to the audit trail that you've never had before. This is, if you think about it, we only record activity when we're physically there. I was here, I saw this, I found this. Now the machines are there going, no, you weren't there, because for the vast majority of time, we're not at your premise. This is now telling us, at that moment, that picture was taken, and then when our people are there, we're building the recommendations, but we can link it back to those core events, which are linked together through the timelines that we can see through MyRentokil.
Yeah, I think data-driven, it gives you early intervention. I said it before, but it's knowing, that it's there, when it's there, what it is. It's very, very key to getting to the root cause. And you could tickle an infestation by just putting down boxes, but actually knowing the behavior of the animal and learning where they're coming to and coming from and going to is key to solving the problem. I mean, really solving the problem and not just tickling it. And I think, IoT, AI, it's fundamental to that. I love this. People say, well, are you going to be out of a job? I don't think so at all. This is a real help to both customers and PCOs, in the future.
We've talked a lot about rodents. They'll be amongst our customer base and everybody concerned about food safety. A load of other pests that you should worry about. All of these cameras and technology, are they getting hold of other pests now, or is the rodent big enough to see?
No, I think if we talk about what is the system, what is Pest Connect, what is it trying to do? It's that early warning system. It's there to alarm and alert you. Now, when you see a picture of a rodent, it's clear, cut. You need a call out, you need a visit, we need to get in the van and get there quickly because there's a problem. And with insects, particularly when you look at flying insects, crawling insects, and we move into SPIs, and we start looking around that, it starts to get into the constructs of thresholds and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And every time I've had this discussion, nearly everyone starts to go to species recognition, perfect solutions.
I
And
do want
I've
to
got
go
a
to
picture.
species recognition, Paul.
I've got a picture here, which is a unit that's on trial, and it's out there. And this is linked to Lumnia. So we attach these cameras and the technology and AI onto Lumnia. Now, this gives us a time lapse of what's going on at a glue board. And if we play that concept back, at what point would you raise the alarm? And when would you want us to visit? And when do you think you've got a problem? And that's why I think, Brian, rodents have been easier, because as soon as you see it, go. But at what day? This could be a build-up over a month. This could be a build-up over a week. But if it jumps from the last time we visited your site, it was blank. It was empty. We changed the glue board. And then 30 days later, we saw it full. We don't know what got to full. So if we can remotely take the picture every day, we can agree with you a threshold when it breaks, a percentage covered, a count. Yeah. Now, this is where the human in the loop comes in, because ultimately we can look at objects, we can count objects. You know, can I get perfect species recognition? Can I get perfect counting? And no, not yet. But the pictures are learning and getting better. But I think we're ready now. We have a solution, and we can talk about this with you at the stand over the next few days. But the construct is, we think you want an early warning system. We think you're telling us when it goes from empty to 20% in one day, I want to know about it, and I want you to come out. And I think that's where we're at now. We've got the technology, it works. We can integrate it with Lumnia. We can send that picture to our colleagues remotely, so they can interact with your site without even being there. They can start to look at this glue board and say, hey, Colm, that means we need to visit. And when you put that together, that, I think, changes how we react with insects. So this concept works in Lumnia. The concept works with cockroaches. The concept works with SPIs, where we can identify an area that should have nothing on it. This should be completely blank. And when it's not completely blank, the AI can start to go. So we've got very high accuracy, like rodents for cockroaches. Really confident I can spot a cockroach and tell you even the difference between a German and an American cockroach. I'm confident I can do that. But when it gets to a glue board like this, well, one, is it relevant? You know, because ultimately we're trying to solve a problem. Knowing what's on the board, well, I can send the picture to your technician, and they can see it remotely and decide themselves. But I think it's this early warning, it's this alarm, it's this something's changed at your site, and you need an intervention. And that's where we're at now. We're in pilots. We have a few hundred of these out in the field, and we're learning every day how best to place this type of technology beyond rodents.
Mm. Yeah, no, I'm very excited with that personally. And I am one of the people who annoy the hell out of Paul to try and get me to can I get an identification of an insect, because it is important.
Yeah.
But you know, if I can tell the difference between, you know, Califera, you know, or a common housefly with a lesser housefly, let's say the difference, that gives me information about where they're going to come from. And this is a stepping stone to that, I think. And I think it's an essential stepping stone. But it doesn't take away, the human in the loop doesn't take that away.
No.
It means I can go and identify it. But yeah, I'm still chipping away, Paul.
Yeah, so small, medium, and large, comfortable with. Small things, medium things,
Yes.
big things, we can do
Yeah.
that. Count, pretty good. Percentage coverage, pretty good. Alarm, human in the loop is key.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can take the human out of this loop for some time, if ever. Brian, back to the robot's going to replace our technicians. I really don't see that.
And it's going to get better and better.
Every day, you know, we're training these models all of the time. And that's the scale that few bring. You know, I talk a lot about AI and image processing is moving on at huge speeds. You know, if you take a picture of the Eiffel Tower, put it up there, within minutes, Google, it's the Eiffel Tower. I know that's the Eiffel Tower. You know, a German Shepherd dog, right? It's a German Shepherd dog. But people aren't submitting through all of these Google Photos pictures that look like this. They aren't there. They aren't building libraries and learning around these things. This is going to be more complex than it sounds. And I think we've got the scale. We've got the passive is important. We're learning and training every day. And the most important thing really is, let's create this early warning system that gives the frontline colleague just that head start. If you can get that head start, you can be better than you were without this technology, and that's where we're at with all of this.
Isn't it a fundamental business challenge that as you teach the internet, you teach the internet?
Okay, yeah. And that's we could do a whole other presentation on open. Did you tick the box and read the small print? So having a closed model versus an open model, we partner really closely with Google, and a lot of our work with Gemini and all of this is in our closed model. It's not on the public internet. We could charge them for that. That might be an interesting one, whether we want to train their models. But this is a proprietary model that sits inside of our sphere. It's our IP, if you like. It's our uniqueness. And very much like the camera, there will be AI. There is, because you have to pay an extra $20 for that version of the online camera that you talked about in Amazon. But that camera isn't trained for these sort of things, which is different.
Thank you. Thanks, Colin. Any questions from the room?
Everyone's silent, ready to go. You have predicted right.
Quick summary from my side, then we'll let you go. Forensic pest control, partly about clever technology, very much about connected technology, very much about still the technology human interaction. Ready and out there on rodents, and a load of work going on moving it into the insect world, really with one main objective in mind, making sure that we can support as best we can everybody's work towards great food safety. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.